I think the readiness, and actually more than readiness, willingness for dialogue is a test of our rationality. I think those people who are afraid of talking, internally they feel weak, and they are worried that what they have made as their worldview, ideas, would collapse. Any person who has been rational and has really thought well and through his or her ideas should be happy to discuss with other people if they are also happy. So why I should be hesitant to talk? The Quran teaches us that to talk to people doesn't mean that you are accepting what they say or you are associating yourself with their moral values. It's just something that you should try so that maybe your side or the other side or both sides can get closer to the truth. We have conversation between God and angels, but we have also conversation between God and Satan. We have conversation between Moses and Israelites. We have conversation between Moses and Pharaoh. And it is interesting, in chapter 20, Surah Taha, God, among the very first things that told Moses was that he should go to Pharaoh and speak to him. God didn't say, now that you have become my prophet, never speak to Pharaoh. Actually, God asked him that you should go. And then he said to God, please open up my chest, give me patience and ability to cope with the challenges. Unfortunately, many times, because we don't have that patience and that large heart, then we hide our lack of interest in dialogue by religious arguments. But indeed the problem is that I am not personally a person who is large enough in his heart to accommodate others. So Moses asked God, Rabbi shrah li sadri, please open up my chest so that I can talk to them. وَيَسِّرْ لِي amri, please make my affair easy. And please remove blockage from my tongue so that I can communicate well. And also please give me a helper and make my brother Aaron my helper. So after that, God said, now you two go to Pharaoh. So first was Moses, then God said, now you and Aaron together go to Pharaoh. But قُولَا لَهُ قَوْلًا لَيَّنًا, speak in a soft manner with him. Unfortunately, sometimes either we don't speak, or through our words we only empty ourselves and put our anger in the words and shoot them as bullets to the other person, and we call it dialogue. This is not dialogue. This is a polite act of murder. You are murdering the other person's soul, but you call it dialogue or conversation. So if you want to really have dialogue, even with someone like Pharaoh, you should speak softly, nicely, politely. لَعَلَّهُ يَتَذَكَّرُ أَوْ يَخْشَى. This is amazing. God says, even with someone like Pharaoh, there is a chance. Maybe his heart becomes soft. Maybe he remembers God. Unfortunately, as soon as we have little problem with our husband, wife, children, neighbor, or people of other faith, We say it's useless to talk to them. No benefit. I have tried this few times. But who is worse than Pharaoh, who was killing people, who claimed to be God? And the Quran says that he said, "Ana rabbukumul a'la," I am your highest Lord. Not only a Lord, I am your highest Lord. Even in one case he said, "Ma alimtu lakum min ilahin ghayri." I looked around and I didn't find actually anyone other than me who is your Lord. So he was not even happy to be the highest Lord. He then said, "I am your only Lord." Even with someone like him, God says you should talk. So, readiness for dialogue in a good, respectful, gentle manner, I think it's a sign of our rationality, a sign of our faithfulness. This is general. But when it comes to believers in God, that is a necessity of our faithfulness. The Quran says, قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ تَعَالَوْا إِلَىٰ كَلِمَةٍ سَوَاءٍ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ. So this is instruction that we received in the Quran. It's not something new for us. It's not a fashion. It's not that, okay, if we don't go to this dialogue, it doesn't look nice. No, it's a religious obligation that we should invite everyone to get together around the common word. And that is to serve one God, the absolute truth, the absolute beauty, the absolute kindness. So, if I as a Muslim, and perhaps a Christian, I don't want to speak on behalf of my Christian friends, but I think these things are mutual. If we as Muslims or Christians don't give enough energy and attention to this dialogue of people of faith, people of God, there is something missing in our faith. Either we are not rational enough, or we are not confident enough, or we have not understood greatness of God, and we think God is not that great that can be shared. You are worried that if you share faith in God with other people, then nothing enough will be left for you. This is the problem that some religious people have. Once I took a group of men to Italy and we had a discussion about love. This is maybe 2012. And I said, it seems we have two types of love for God. There are people who have not experienced love for God. That's a sad story. And I think we, people who believe in God and have been blessed with knowing God and loving God, we have a joint responsibility to share with them the beauty of God and beauty of faith and beauty of love for God. Unfortunately, we have not fulfilled our joint responsibility. We only call people towards God through our own faith and through our own tradition, which is not enough. And if I get a chance, I will talk about it later. That we are in new, I think, historical stage, and now Muslims, Christians have to work together, otherwise we would not be able to face the challenges, which are the greatest challenges of faith as far as we read the history. Anyway, that's one sad story, that there are people who have never had serious, vital experience of God and love for God. But among people who have faith and they think they have love for God, we have two types of love. Some people love God in the way that they want to possess God, as possessive love for God. For example, I love my children, I love my books, I love my home, but in a possessive way. I don't allow other people to say, in the same sense, I love your children, I love your wife, I love your home. This is mine, it's not yours. How can you say, in the same way that I say I love them, I love them? So they want to have monopoly over God. This is my God, not your God. And if you want to share with me, you have to fight. It's like two people who have fight over one piece of land. Then they can fight each other. You know, unfortunately, in one of the countries in Asia, I don't want to mention the name, there are Christians who have been taken to the court. Why they say Allah? I cannot understand this. What is wrong if a Christian calls God Allah? On the other hand, we have some Christians who say God of Islam is not our God, that's Allah. Allah is different from God. Allah is totally different entity. Not knowing that even the Arabic translation of Bible always uses Allah. Arab Christians all the time they say Allah. So there is such mentality that God belongs to us. God cannot be shared with other people. And therefore they bring God to the level of a tribal God or sectarian God or God of a certain tradition who has a special affinity with some people, and the rest of humanity are strangers or outsiders. And sometimes, interestingly, they hear from this God that they have right to kill other people. They cannot say, we say this, but they say God is telling us, we can kill you. Our God tells us that we have right to kill you. What can we do? This is God, the Creator. So it looks funny, but this is the mindset of many people, that they think God belongs to them, they have monopoly over God, and God secretly tells them what His wills are. But true love is not to possess God, is to be possessed by God. So instead of bringing God down to our level, let's us rise towards God and become godly. And if you can rise, then you would see little by little that differences become less significant. Differences are there. If from a sky you look at cities and streets, they are there. They have not disappeared. But they are not as significant for you as the one who is now walking on one street. In our spiritual journey, when we get closer to God, the differences between people and religions and traditions do not disappear. But they would not take your attention away from the large picture. That's the problem. If you look at history of Christianity or Islam, we see sometimes Christians, sometimes Muslims in the past, and sometimes even maybe today, they have not recognized each other as fellow religious people. They killed each other. They excommunicated each other. They said, you don't share Jesus, you don't believe in Christianity, or you don't believe in Islam. Why? Because they had few theological questions that for them appeared to be the main thing in the world. If you don't agree on this, the rest is not important. What has happened that now, thanks to God, many Muslims, many Christians, although they belong to different traditions, different denominations, why they recognize each other as brothers and sisters in the same faith? Have they compromised about their differences? Now that, for example, we have dialogue between Mennonites and Catholics, between Catholics and Lutherans, we have, Sunni Shia dialogue. Have we solved our problems? No. Have we betrayed our faith and compromised and diluted? No. What has happened? We have a little bit become more mature. We have been tried to understand that although we differ in areas, but there are many other areas that we share. And we have tried to go a little bit above human level and have a godly vision. So my idea is we need one more step, at least one more step. And that is people who believe in God of Abraham, who believe in one God, who is personal God, who is the creator, who is benevolent, who is omnipotent. We should be able to acknowledge that we belong to the same tradition, to the same path. I can be a Muslim or Christian or Jew. I can be following a certain tradition in each of these religions. But why we are not able to acknowledge the common framework? And that is we all are followers of the same tradition of Abraham. And of course, Abraham is not the founder. Abraham is the first meeting point. After Abraham, everything else is the same. Back to Adam. And when I read the Quran, I realize that actually Quran is very clearly telling us, if we are opening our ears, that God has sent only one religion. God has only introduced us one path, but in different times, in different languages, by different representatives, but it's only one religion. People gave different names. Once I used this example, imagine if there is one mountain that we have been climbing, but suppose some of us have been climbing in the morning and some in the evening. Those who climbed in the morning gave this journey one name, and those who climbed in the evening gave it another name. Then they thought they are climbing two different mountains because two different names. Or people who climbed this 50 years ago, they used to call it one name, now we call it another name. But the mountain is the same mountain. Our journey towards God is the same in essence. Maybe we do it differently, but we are journeying towards the same God. Unfortunately, the problem is that many times we have forgotten God and we are talking about the way we journey without being that much concerned about God. The main issue is submission to God, the absolute truth, and we are not that much concerned about it anymore. Then we talk about the ways we express our submission. Like, for example, people who go to medical school, but they don't study, and they don't develop the passion that a doctor should have, and they just discuss what color should be their suit. Should be white or green. But have you passion, the knowledge? Have you developed the passion and knowledge of a doctor? No, we don't have time to talk about it. It's easier to talk about the color of the dress. So, there is one religion, one path, but different interpretations, different manifestations. And the way I understand, and some other Muslim scholars understand the Quran, is that actually our prophet refused to give any name to this call, to this invitation. Some people think Islam is a new name. But Islam is not a new name. Our prophet said, let's all go back to the same name that was always used for this path. This is the name that Abraham, Jacob, Isaac, Ishmael all used to call, just to submit ourselves to God. If you are not happy with the name, call it another name. Or don't call it anything, but submit yourself to God. Unfortunately, names have become problems. This is the third thing that I say today can be deceiving. In addition to books and maps, names. When we give a name to something, then there is a danger that forever we can separate it from other things. When, for example, few theologians or few preachers, they have one idea about Bible. We give it a name, then forever remains as a separate entity. As a new church. Or in Islam, sects have happened like this. At one time, some issues become very important. As soon as you give a name and it becomes formalized, then forever that can remain as a separate sect. So we have to be very careful not to give names sometimes to some conditions, because there is a worry that this name and keep it always separate from other things. So whatever you name or don't name, the main thing is how much are we submissive to God. And I want to end with one point that I think is a sign of submission to God. Because maybe many of us think that we are submissive to God. But I think it's very difficult. I cannot say I submit myself to God. Maybe you can say, I don't know. It's very, very difficult. But one sign of submission to God is humbleness. Any person or any community that think they are submissive to God, they are the only faithful people, and in this way they lack humility, they are not submissive to God. The closer you get to God, the more humble you become, and the more open your hearts become for other people. If I want to be really close to God, I should become more humble. When God becomes more obvious, then who am I that demand any significance? We have a story about Abraham. We both believe that Abraham was chosen as friend of God. Khalil, we say. There is a story that Abraham went outside home to look for some guests because he was very hospitable. And sometimes he didn't have guests, so he looked outside for some guests to share his meal with them. So one day he went out, and when he was going back home, he found a young man in his home. He said, بِإِذْنِ مَنْ دَخَلْتَ هَذِهِ الدَّارِ, with whose permission you entered this house? He didn't start fighting. He gave that person a chance to defend himself. He said, with whose permission you got into this house? He said, بِإِذْنِ رَبِّ هَذِهِ الدَّارِ, with the permission of the Lord of this house. Abraham didn't say, I am the Lord of this house and I didn't give you permission. No. Because Abraham was so humble that he didn't think he is the Lord of even his own house. There is only one Lord. So when he said that I have come with the permission of the Lord of this house, he realized this is an angel who has come with the permission of God. The angel said, someone has been chosen by God as his friend. I have come to inform him. So please put yourself in that context. Suppose you are Abraham. You are a messenger, and this angel has come to your home, and he says, there is someone that I have come to inform him that he's chosen by God as his friend. What do you think? You think it must be you? I say, thank you. I was expecting this to happen any day. Someone like me, definitely God appreciates. But Abraham didn't think that it was him. He said, who is chosen by my Lord as his friend, so that I serve him till I die? This is sign of being close to God. First of all, he doesn't think it's himself. Secondly, he is not jealous that why God has chosen someone else. Thirdly, he volunteers to serve anyone who is chosen by God without saying, is he speaking the same language as I? Is his skin like me? Does he follow the same tradition as me? No. Anyone who is chosen by my Lord as his friend, I want to serve him. Then the angel said, it's actually you. And then Abraham said, why? This why is very beautiful. What is in me that God has found significant? And the angel said few things. One thing is, whenever you were asked by people to help, you never said no. Anytime who asked you for help, you didn't say no. God loves such people that are available to help. But whenever you had needs, you didn't ask people. You didn't want to be a burden on people. So you were always there to help, but never asking for help. So, I think religious people need this humbleness of Abraham. We should be so much overwhelmed by beauty of God, by love for God, that we never think about ourselves. We never think about our own things, our own work, and we just want to be at the service of God. And whoever is doing something for God, whoever is moving towards God, whoever has a relation with God, whoever is a creature of God, we just try to serve them. If you are a good servant and your master has some guests, what do? Do you go first in and lock the door so that no one else comes? Many of us do that. Let's first get my people inside and I lock the door. It's better to be less people with God. But if you are a good servant, what do? You go everywhere and call, God has opened his doors. Please go and visit him. You make sure everyone goes and you remain by the door to help anyone who has difficulty in finding the room. This servant who is next to the door is the closest. Not the one who jumps and sits next to the master and not giving a space to other people. So I think for us, this is a real challenge. How much we are ready for the sake of God to open ourselves, to welcome other people in our heart, share with them our journey towards God, and think that I'm the least. I'm the least. Not I am not the best, I'm the most important, or I'm the only person who believes in God. And it doesn't matter whether you are doing this in the name of one person or in the name of your tradition or your church or your mosque. We shouldn't be deceived. I'm not saying Muhammad Ali Shomali, I'm saying Shia, I'm saying Muslim. The same arrogance that can be hidden under my name can be hidden under my religious name. The main thing is arrogance should not be there. Otherwise, we are very clever in covering, saying, I never said, me as a person. I'm talking about my faith. I'm talking about my religion. But honestly, how much God is in our heart and how much our ego, how much we are working for the glory of God, how much we are working for the glory of ourselves. That's the main question. So I believe Christian-Muslim relation is very important test for us. How much we have become mature, how much we have become submissive to God, how much we have emptied ourselves from ego, and how much we are ready to work together for betterment of humanity. I think there are things that we can do together and we cannot do alone. Muslims, Christians, there are certain things that they can do on their own. But today, there are things that we can only do if we are together. The challenges of faith are so great today that no single faith community can face them and come successful. We have to work together. If we, Muslims and Christians, together work and call towards God, people cannot say they have selfish interest. Say, no, we want to share with you God. It doesn't matter you want to call it this name or that name, follow this tradition or that tradition or any tradition. You have to find the best way to submit yourself to God. It doesn't matter to me you want to become a Muslim or not become a Muslim. That's not my business. What I want to do is to help you to find your way to God. So sometimes I say to my, students that for us as a Muslim, our mission is not only to help Muslims. If a Christian who doesn't go to the church, I can help him to go back to the church. This is also my mission. Because this is the way that people can get connected to God. I shouldn't say, if they don't come to mosque, then it doesn't matter whether they go to church or they don't go to church. No. How can you be a believer in God and you say it doesn't matter? We should serve everyone in his journey towards God. That's the main mission for all of us. And I think we have to revisit our theology, revisit our spirituality, our practices, and equip ourselves with a better understanding of this mission that we have today. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, both of you, for giving us so much to think about. And I think we should open it up for conversations, and maybe you can just field the questions yourself as you see people raise their hand.
Sure.
I won't act like a moderator. So if there are comments to make, words of affirmation or